A black man, dressed modestly, walked into the grand lobby of a luxury hotel to check in for a room. Suddenly, a white receptionist refused to serve him. They looked down on him, quietly mocked him, and even a female manager ordered security to keep an eye on him. But everything changed when he silently pulled out one keycard. What happened next would shake the entire hotel staff. Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your voice. An autumn breeze swept across the entrance of Harrington Hall, stirring a few yellow leaves across the polished granite walkway. Under the brass-plated sign that read, "A Claiborne Property," a tall black man stood quietly. He looked to be in his early 60s, his posture still upright, his face lined with age and long travel. Silver hair peeked from under the edges of his wool cap, and his dark brown eyes held a quiet depth. He looked up at the sign for a long moment, as if trying to decide if he still belonged here. Then he walked in. Jerome Tate didn't carry a sleek leather suitcase or wear a designer coat. Just a faded gray canvas jacket worn smooth at the cuffs. A weathered crossbody bag, heavy with documents, was slung over his shoulder. His steps were soft, silent on the marble floors. No one in the lobby noticed him. Jerome had helped build places like this with ideas, not bricks. He envisioned Harrington Hall as a place of quiet elegance and genuine warmth, where every guest felt welcomed and valued, where bias had no place to hide. His body ached from hours of travel, his mind foggy. All he truly craved was a hot shower and a firm bed, but still he moved slowly, his eyes scanning the high ceilings, the cream tones, the walnut veneer of the check-in counter he had designed. He let his hand drift along its cool, smooth edge. Behind the counter stood one woman. Young was intensely focused on her screen. Her light brown hair was pulled back into a neat bun, and her face was meticulously made up, highlighting full lips painted with glossy pink, and long glittering nails that tapped a quick rhythm on the keys. Jerome gave a polite nod. "Good evening." She looked up, her wide, slightly tired eyes darting over his unassuming jacket and bag. For a split second she froze. Then came the trained smile, polished, controlled, straight from the orientation manuals. "How can I help you, sir?" "I'm checking in. Name's Jerome Tate." She typed quickly, nails clacking softly. 10 seconds. 20. A small frown creased her forehead, and she glanced up, her polite facade cracking with impatience. "I'm not seeing a reservation under that name. Did you book through a third-party site?" Her tone was flat, dismissive. "No." "The room is under the internal block," Jerome said calmly. She blinked, her brows furrowing as she tilted her head. "Internal block?" "The owner's block," he clarified. "A suite reserved for founders and senior oversight." Her brows rose slightly. That wasn't a request she heard often, especially not from someone without a tailored suit or an assistant. Her tone shifted, her face tightening into polite suspicion. It was clear she was already making a judgment. "I'll get the shift manager," she said, her voice now crisp with exasperation. Jerome nodded. He didn't mind waiting. He wanted to see how far this would go before someone recognized what truly mattered. A minute passed. Then Emily Harrington, the manager, stepped out from the back office. Tall, slim, her sleek blonde hair pulled back into a severe bun, she wore a perfectly tailored beige blazer, her name tag gleaming brightly on her lapel. Her presence commanded the space. "I'm Emily. Tonight's shift manager. I hear you're having trouble with check-in?" Her voice was clipped, efficient, betraying impatience as her eyes quickly assessed Jerome. Jerome calmly explained his need for the owner's block suite. Emily nodded briskly, a practiced gesture, then checked the system with the younger clerk. A few minutes later she returned, empty-handed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Tate," she began, her words smooth, rehearsed, but lacking warmth. "As my colleague mentioned, we're fully booked tonight due to the Leadership Summit. Without a pre-registered confirmation, even internal partners can't be accommodated. We simply have no rooms available." Her words were flawless corporate policy, but her eyes, cool, measuring, and subtly dismissive, spoke louder. They lingered on his worn coat and canvas bag, subtly conveying that she had already categorized him and found him wanting. Both women clearly had no intention of finding a solution. Jerome didn't respond. He just watched. Emily maintained her professional smile, but doubt had settled firmly in her gaze. "Are you sure you're not confusing us with another Claiborne property?" she added lightly, a thinly veiled suggestion that he was mistaken, or perhaps attempting to deceive them. Jerome said nothing. He didn't need to. His appearance didn't match their expectation of someone from the owner's block. They were reacting to what they saw, not to what he said. At that precise moment, the main doors hissed open, and a young couple stepped into the lobby. They radiated effortless affluence. The man, fair-skinned and impeccably dressed in a custom-tailored suit, exuded quiet confidence. The woman beside him, with a designer handbag, laughed softly. Their steps were light, their faces alight with the promise of a carefree evening. Instantly, the entire front desk seemed to awaken. The bellhop, who moments ago had chuckled dismissively at Jerome, sprang forward, a broad grin plastered across his face. "Welcome, welcome," he boomed, taking their sleek carry-ons. "Let me get those for you right away, sir." Emily's posture straightened, her professional smile now beaming with genuine enthusiasm. She leaned over the counter, her voice dripping with an almost syrupy sweetness, a stark contrast to the clipped tone she had used with Jerome. "Welcome to Harrington Hall. We've been expecting you. Mr. Davies, I presume? We've upgraded your suite to a panoramic view, courtesy of the house." She gestured towards the elevators, her eyes practically sparkling as she handed them gleaming keycards. The young receptionist, her face beaming in sync with Emily, quickly handed the couple glasses of lemon-infused water, practically fawning over them. "Is there anything else we can do for you?" she chirped, utterly oblivious to Jerome, who still sat quietly by the pillar. Jerome watched the scene unfold. He wasn't envious. He had poured his heart into this space, designed it so every guest, no matter how tired or unimportant they felt, would be greeted like family. That was the promise. He had written the training manual himself, emphasizing empathy and universal respect. He believed in a hotel where excellence meant no guest ever felt less than valued. But tonight he was a stranger in his own house, an invisible man in the halls he had helped shape. The sight of the effusive welcome given to others, simply for looking the part, solidified the bitter taste of betrayal. He turned his head slightly, hearing the front desk girl whisper to her colleague, "He doesn't look like a 12th-floor guest at all." And a stocky bellman, whose stiff uniform strained over his middle, and whose tired eyes held a cynical amusement, walked by. He let out a soft chuckle. "Probably just looking for a place to crash." Years ago, he had said something to the first class of Claiborne managers, a principle he hoped would echo through the very foundations of their hospitality. True respect isn't how you handle a guest when they raise their voice. It's how you treat them before you know who they are. And today he was here, a quiet, unassuming test, to see if they truly learned that fundamental lesson. Jerome sat quietly near the marble column, hands folded over his worn canvas bag. He wanted to see how long it would take before someone in this gleaming, impersonal place remembered what true hospitality meant, what he had designed it to mean. He wasn't angry, not yet. But a familiar dull ache settled in his chest, the kind you feel when the place you helped build no longer recognizes your name or your face. The casual dismissiveness he'd just experienced was a bitter testament to how far Harrington Hall had drifted from its original purpose. Emily, the shift manager, returned from behind the counter, her steps rigid, her slender frame held with an almost military posture. Her earlier polite smile had vanished, replaced by a calm, clipped tone. The kind people use when they think they're about to deal with trouble and need to assert control. "Sir, we have service standards," she stated, trying to sound firm but polite, her voice a low murmur to avoid drawing undue attention. "We don't discriminate here. I hope you understand. We have procedures to follow." She wasn't explaining, she was protecting the brand's image, covering herself. Her eyes flicked subtly to an approaching security guard, a silent signal of her growing unease. Jerome looked up at her, his dark eyes steady, unwavering. "I'm not asking for privilege," he said softly, his voice cutting through the manufactured calm. "I'm asking for accuracy." He wasn't trying to make a scene. He had spent his life choosing calm over conflict. But being talked down to, in a lobby he had once designed, made that quiet fire stir in his chest. Emily's lips thinned. She crossed her arms, a subtle shift in her body language signaling control. She lowered her voice, each word now laced with a thinly veiled threat. "If you're unable to confirm a reservation," she said, her voice tightened with discomfort and impatience, "we may need to have security assist you to the door. It's protocol." It wasn't about safety. It was about assumptions, how a man like him, alone, older, not dressed the part, looked more like a trespasser than a founder. It was a fundamental failure of the ethos he had instilled. Jerome didn't react outwardly. His face remained calm, unyielding. But inside, watching her dismiss him, something in him shifted, a quiet, almost imperceptible break. The last thread of his long-held patience snapped, replaced by a searing resolve to lay bare the truth. He slowly rose from his chair, his movements deliberate, unhurried. He walked slowly, purposefully back toward the front desk where Emily and the young clerk still stood, caught in their moment of fawning over the affluent couple. He pulled out a silver key card. Its edges were worn, but the Claiborne emblem, a soaring eagle, which he himself had approved, still gleamed defiantly under the lobby light. He didn't carry it to impress people. He kept it to remind himself of what he helped build, and what it was supposed to stand for. He reached the counter and, without a word, placed the card into the scanner, his fingers brushing the cool surface. Emily and the young clerk, startled by his sudden proximity, stopped mid-sentence. The scanner lit green, a stark contrast to the red light of earlier denials. "Access granted. Owner tier." Then his name appeared in bold letters on the screen, blindingly clear. Jerome Tate, founding partner. Emily stared at the screen, her professional composure crumbling instantly. Her jaw dropped, and the color drained completely from her face, leaving her pale, almost ghostly. She took a half-step back, her eyes wide with disbelief. The young front desk clerk beside her gasped softly, her eyes wide with shock and a dawning horror. Her perfectly manicured fingers froze mid-air above the keyboard. No words. No immediate apology. Just a sudden, profound stillness, like they were both trying to rewrite everything that had just happened, to unsee what they had seen, to unsay what they had said. The polite, dismissive atmosphere had shattered, replaced by a chilling silence that screamed realization. The air around them crackled with dread. Jerome looked at neither of them. He simply stood there, quiet, his presence filling the space, an undeniable force. And in that overwhelming silence, one truth rang louder than any explanation, any apology, any justification. They had seen everything. His worn coat, his canvas bag, his age, his skin. But they never once truly saw him. Just as the silence stretched taut, a new figure stepped into the lobby from the executive offices. Andre Milford, the imposing regional director of operations, his suit precisely tailored, his stride confident and swift, was heading directly towards the front desk. He carried an air of effortless authority, his gaze sweeping the room with practiced efficiency. His eyes, however, stopped abruptly on the illuminated screen displaying Jerome's name, then snapped to Jerome himself. A flicker of surprise, then immediate, stark recognition crossed his face. Andre's entire demeanor shifted, his confident posture softening, his eyes widening almost imperceptibly. "Mr. Tate?" Andre's voice, usually deep and resonant, was laced with an almost reverent disbelief, a tone he reserved only for the highest echelons of the Claiborne Corporation. He rushed forward, extending a hand, his polished facade momentarily cracking with genuine concern. "Forgive me, sir. I wasn't aware you were arriving tonight. There must have been a miscommunication in our internal reports. This is—" Unacceptable. He turned a sharp, furious glance at Emily, who flinched as if struck, her shoulders hunching defensively. Emily, now visibly trembling, stammered, "Mr. Milford, I was just—" Her voice trailed off, a strangled sound. The young receptionist beside her looked as if she might faint, her eyes darting between Emily and Andre, then back to the formidable presence of Jerome Tate. Andre didn't wait for her to finish. He turned back to Jerome, his demeanor shifting instantly to one of profound deference, almost a bow. "Please, Mr. Tate, the owner's suite is of course ready for you. We'll have a bellhop take your bag immediately." He then faced the young receptionist, his voice now a low, dangerous growl that cut through the lobby's hum. "Get Mr. Tate's key. And an immediate upgrade to the Grand Presidential Suite if it's available. If not, make it available." His eyes narrowed, a clear warning. The young receptionist, her face still bloodless, fumbled with the keyboard, her long, glittering nails now a hindrance rather than an adornment. "Yes, Mr. Milford, right away. So sorry, sir." She quickly printed a new keycard, her hands shaking slightly as she offered it to Jerome. "Our sincerest apologies, Mr. Tate. We truly didn't realize." Her gaze flickered to Emily, who stood frozen, her eyes wide with mounting terror, undoubtedly replaying every dismissive word, every condescending glance. The bellhop, who had laughed at Jerome earlier, now stood rigidly by his cart, his usual cynical amusement replaced by abject fear. The realization of their grave error settled over both women like a chilling shroud. Jerome took the keycard, his fingers brushing the receptionist's trembling hand. He offered neither a nod nor a word of acknowledgment to her apology, his expression still unreadable. The weight of his presence alone was enough. He didn't linger at the front desk. He turned, slow and silent, and made his way toward the elevators. The lobby remained still behind him, but he could feel the palpable tension, the fear and shock radiating from Emily and the young clerk, trailing him like a shadow. Their earlier condescension had dissolved into utter dread, replaced by the crushing weight of their misjudgment. Andre, with a quick apologetic bow to Jerome's retreating back, immediately cornered Emily, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. The young receptionist, seizing the opportunity, rushed to summon a new bellhop for Jerome, desperate to correct her earlier mistake. Jerome reached the elevator and swiped his keycard. The soft ping as the doors slid open was the only sound. He stepped inside, turning to face the doors as they closed, leaving the startled lobby and its now terrified staff behind. As the elevator began its ascent, a familiar ache settled deeper in his chest, a weariness that went beyond the day's travel. He closed his eyes for a moment, the smooth, cool metal of the elevator wall against his palm. The slow, rhythmic hum of the machinery carrying him upward became a backdrop for memories. On his way up, a vivid image flashed in his mind, a large framed photo that hung in the hallway near the executive wing, the official ribbon-cutting ceremony of Harrington Hall. A moment frozen in time. The founding day, almost 2 decades ago. 6 people stood smiling, hands on the giant scissors, with banners and champagne behind them. He had stared at it many times over the years. His name was printed in gold on the placard below. Jerome Tate, founding partner. But his face wasn't in the frame. Not by accident, he remembered the day too clearly, every sharp detail, the scent of fresh paint, the buzz of anticipation. He had been there, of course he had. He had designed the service philosophy that now hung on plaques in every hallway of this very hotel. He had personally written the Guest First Code, taught it, lived it. He believed in it with every fiber of his being. But that day, he was asked to stand off to the side. He could still hear the PR manager whispering, her voice apologetic but firm. "Uncle Jay, we need a clean brand image. Please help us from backstage, okay? The main photo's got to look unified for the press." Unified. That was the word they used to tell him he didn't fit the picture, that his presence would somehow disrupt the carefully curated image. And that was the first time Jerome truly realized. You could build the stage, light it, and hand everyone the mic, and still not be allowed to stand on it. He had accepted it then, quietly, because he believed in the bigger mission. He told himself, if I can build a place where others are seen, even if I'm not, it's worth it. He had swallowed the quiet slight, focusing on the grander purpose of a truly inclusive hospitality. But today he had walked into his own vision and was treated like a stranger, dismissed, misjudged, not by one isolated incident or one careless individual, but by the very culture that claimed to be different, the very system he helped create. The irony was a bitter pill. The years of quiet dedication, of being the unseen force, had finally reached their limit. This couldn't be allowed to continue. His hands clenched the strap of his bag, the worn canvas digging into his palm. He wasn't angry, not a furious rage, but he was done being invisible. He was done being a ghost in his own legacy. The time for quiet acceptance was over. The elevator chimed, announcing his floor. The doors opened onto the luxurious silence of the grand presidential suite hallway. He stepped out, the plush carpet muffling his footsteps. He looked one last time at the photo in his mind, the erased legacy. Then he turned not towards his suite just yet, but toward the concierge desk near the lounge, his resolve hardened. His voice was calm, but this time it carried unmistakable weight, the quiet authority of a man reclaiming his place. I'd like to schedule a meeting, tomorrow, with the regional director and the head of culture. He was no longer waiting to be recognized. He was reclaiming the room he helped build. He was ready to make them see. The conference room was smaller than the one upstairs, the kind meant for early morning strategy sessions and quiet HR reviews, not reckonings. The lights were low, not out of design, but because no one had remembered to brighten them, casting long shadows that mirrored the mood in the room. Emily sat nearest to the glass wall. Her back was straight. Her palms rested flat against the table, but her fingers pressed into the edge, as if to anchor herself there, preventing herself from trembling. Across from her stood Jerome, hands folded in front of him, not a file, not a voice raised, just presence, calm, focused, enduring. The quiet strength radiating from him filled the small room. Andre stood to his right, arms crossed but silent now, his imposing figure a quiet testament to the gravity of the situation. The representative from Human Resources adjusted her glasses, her gaze darting between Jerome and Emily, but said nothing, seemingly out of her depth. Jerome's voice was soft when it came, not a demand, not a rebuke designed to humiliate, just a question delivered with the weight of years of unseen contributions. What did you expect a founder to look like? Emily's head lifted slowly, as if pulled by an invisible string. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She blinked once, then again. Her mind raced, grappling with the profound implication of his words, the sudden, shocking realization of her colossal mistake. Jerome didn't flinch. He didn't press, allowing the question to hang in the air, a mirror reflecting their assumptions back at them. Instead, he spoke as if to the room, but his eyes never left hers, holding her gaze with an unwavering intensity. On the day we opened this hotel, he said slowly, each word deliberate, filled with a quiet sorrow. I sat at the back of the ballroom, near the doors. I watched them deliver the keynote with words I had written myself. The applause was loud, the lights were warm, but no one said my name, no one even saw me. His voice, though still soft, carried the faint, distant echo of that old persistent wound. A silence followed, not heavy with accusation, just honest, a raw admission of a truth long buried. I'm not here to punish you, he added, his voice still gentle but firm. I'm here because I still believe in what this hotel could be, what it should be. I've never believed in that kind of correction, that form of retribution. What I want, what I hope, is that the next time you look at someone, the next time you categorize them based on their appearance or how they arrive, you'll pause before deciding who they must be. He paused, allowing his words to sink in, his gaze softening slightly but remaining steadfast, because true hospitality isn't about grand gestures for the powerful. It's about seeing the humanity in everyone, no matter their coat or their bag. The room held still, the silence now tinged with introspection, a profound shift in understanding. André exhaled, just once, a faint sound of satisfaction, a nod of silent approval. The HR director closed her notebook without writing anything more, the lessons imprinted elsewhere, deeper than any ink on paper. Jerome nodded slightly, a signal of completion. "We're done." He turned and left first, his steps quiet on the carpet, his presence receding but leaving an indelible mark. André lingered only a second, a silent nod to Emily before following. The HR director offered Emily a brief look, neither pity nor judgment, but a shared understanding of the weight of the moment, and excused herself with a soft click of the door. Emily remained. She sat there for nearly 20 minutes, eyes fixed on the dark knot in the wood grain across the table, replaying every interaction, every dismissive glance, every unsaid word. The chill of the room finally seemed to reach her, a cold awakening to her own blindness. A single tear, unbidden, traced a path down her cheek. The ambition that had driven her, the efficiency she prided herself on, now felt hollow, exposed by the quiet wisdom of a man she had so readily overlooked. That afternoon, back in Jerome's suite, the sunlight filtered in through tall windows, painting soft stripes on the pristine carpet. The hum of the city, muted and distant, was a backdrop to the quiet comfort of the spacious room. Beside the fruit tray someone had forgotten to remove, on the small writing desk beneath a black and white photo of the hotel's early foundation, a stark, truthful image of beginnings, there was a folded note. It wasn't typed, no company letterhead, just a torn page from a receptionist's notepad, the lines slightly uneven, the paper slightly crumpled from being held tight. In neat, careful cursive, it read, "I will learn to see before I judge. Thank you, Mr. Tate, for truly opening my eyes." Emily. Weeks turned into months, and the Harrington Hall began to transform. Emily, once driven by rigid efficiency, now moved through the lobby with genuine awareness. Her gaze softened, seeing arriving guests not as categories, but as individuals whose unspoken needs she sought to anticipate. Her smile became truly welcoming, no longer just a professional facade. She often personally greeted guests at the entrance, her voice warmer, her questions sincere. The staff followed suit. Bellhops moved with renewed purpose, receptionists engaged guests with proactive spirits, and even security guards shifted from detached observers to helpful guides. André Milford quietly oversaw these internal adjustments. Jerome Tate made infrequent, unannounced visits, a quiet observer of the changes. He'd sit in the lobby's quiet corners, watching the interactions, the way the light fell. Sometimes his eyes would meet Emily's across the polished marble, a silent, knowing nod passing between them, an acknowledgment of a shared vision slowly being rebuilt. The hotel still gleamed, but now, beneath its luxurious surface, radiated a new warmth. It stemmed from the people who finally understood the true meaning of the foundation Jerome Tate had laid. A place built not just on opulence, but on the profound dignity of humanity, seen and valued, without hierarchy. The Harrington Hall was, at last, becoming the place it was always meant to be. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.